Live from KSAT 12, the 6 o'clock news starts right now.
The video shows it. Beer after beer, shot after shot. After months of relying mostly on written records, KSAT has finally obtained the security video from the night of Councilman Clayton Perry's drunken hit and run on November 6th.
Our Garrett Berger tells us it actually shows him drinking more than previously reported.
At 4:46 on a Sunday afternoon last November, District 10 Councilman Clayton Perry walked into Evil Olive, where as he'd tell police later that night,
"Well, I had a good time."
For the next 4 hours, Perry's in the bar, talking, drinking, and drinking some more. In his arrest paperwork, San Antonio police said Perry had 14 drinks. In court, his attorney argued it had only been about half that. So we counted them up ourselves. Through the bar's security video, we watched the three-term Northside councilman down 8 beers, 6 shots, and 1 old-fashioned. By our count, that's 15 drinks, one more than police had originally said. Plus, the dregs of someone else's drink, which police had noted elsewhere, but didn't count in the arrest paperwork. Altogether, call it 15 and a quarter. Multiple staff members at the bar told police Perry didn't appear drunk to them. But by the time he leaves, security video shows him stumbling. Based on 14 and a half drinks, police put Perry's blood alcohol content at this moment at 0.25, more than 3 times the legal limit to drive that Jeep Wrangler. He headed directly to the Bill Miller barbecue across the street, where the 67-year-old councilman made an impression on the drive-through 17-year-old cashier and her manager.
He just kept on saying, "I love you, I'm here just to see you." He was trying to tell us what he wanted, but he said he didn't remember what he ordered when he didn't order at all. He was giving me his keys. He was showing me his ID and trying to give me his wallet.
Perry left the Bill Miller at 9:03. A few minutes later, he crashed head-on into a Honda Civic waiting at a light at Redland Road and Jones Maltzberger and took off.
Hi there.
Though Perry would later admit to causing the crash, he wasn't copping to anything when a San Antonio police officer found him lying in his backyard at about 10:16 that night.
So who was driving?
Not me.
Not you.
No.
With nothing to definitively put Perry behind the wheel, the officer eventually left him trying to get into his home with a credit card.
Do not drive anymore tonight.
After more investigating, Perry ended up charged with 2 misdemeanors, failure to stop and give information, and DWI. He pleaded no contest to both of them last month. And though prosecutors were okay with giving him probation, they wanted a conviction on his record. But the judge called their offer unfair and gave him deferred adjudication instead, which means if he successfully completes a year of probation, he'll avoid a conviction for either charge. Garrett Berger, KSAT 12 News.
Thank you, Garrett. The incident also led directly to Perry's decision not to run for council in the most recent election for a 4th and final term. However, he has left open the possibility of running for office again, telling reporters after his sentencing, quote, "Who knows what the future will bring," end quote.
The countdown is on to the end of Title 42. The policy enacted under President Trump is set to expire tomorrow night.
We have crews stationed at different border cities across the state. Our Jonathan Cotto actually standing by in Eagle Pass.
And we also have John Paul Barajas in Del Rio. We will start there this evening. John Paul, you've been told that this is an all-hands-on-deck situation. You spoke to the Del Rio police chief. What is he saying right now?
Well, Chief Frank Ramirez has been in briefings with Border Patrol, and he says he was told today that there's already 29,800 potential crossers, not just in Mexico, but in or around the Del Rio sector. But they're not sure how many will actually come here. He was told the migrants will be going to 3 sectors here, Del Rio, Laredo, or Eagle Pass. And it all just depends on which area is processing the fastest.
Our number one priority is to protect the city. Everybody is basically in uniform and on alert. So if something happens and the border is overcome, we're going to activate, and we're going to have everybody in the department react to it.
Del Rio Police Chief Frank Ramirez tells us this isn't their first time expecting large waves of migrants, and that what they have improved on this time around is communication from across the border, federal, state, and local. As for the end of Title 42,
it's going to happen eventually. This wasn't something that was supposed to be permanent. This was a temporary solution, and we knew that it was going to end. So it's ended. So now that we're here to, take care of it and hope that they everybody acts orderly.
The chief adds if there is an overcrowding of the city, his biggest fear is just misunderstandings from migrants and residents. He hopes things will run smoothly as Title 42 ends, but has concerns with estimated processing times.
From apprehension all the way to release, they're looking at about 51 hours. So they're trying to shorten that the best they can, but still 51 hours is still a pretty good amount of time for each person.
According to CNN, 2.7 million times migrants have been expelled under Title 42. They add, as of Wednesday morning, 155,000 migrants are either in shelters or streets across northern Mexico, as Title 42 is expected to end late Thursday evening. In Del Rio, John Paul Barajas, KSAT 12 News.
Thank you, John Paul. Not only law enforcement agencies and border community leadership bracing for an increase in migrants seeking to get into the U.S.
Our Jonathan Cotto joining us live now from Eagle Pass, where we know the county there has not declared a state of emergency, but has prepared what they're calling a unified response to any potential impact. So, Jonathan, what's the current state of Eagle Pass right now?
Myra, that's an excellent question. I can tell you that the current state is one of high alert. We know that there are thousands of migrants throughout different points of the Rio Grande border, 10,000 in Brownsville, 10,000 in Reynosa that are expected to cross once Title 42 comes to an end. And we know Title 42 put a lot of restrictions on immigration throughout the pandemic, but now landowners are also frustrated. We spoke with Luis Valderrama, a rancher here in Eagle Pass, and the only thing that divides his property from Mexico is a river and a fence. Now, one of the problems he has had to deal with over time is the amount of trash that is left behind by migrants. But now as Title 42 comes to an end, his concerns are much bigger.
I am concerned. What mostly concerns me is that they're going to come up and turn themselves into my house. And I'm going to have hundreds of people, as I've had before, up to 300 Cubans at one time. And that's what concerns me, that they show up. If they want to run through the ranch and get to the highway and turn themselves up there, yeah, I can't control that. But having them show up, 300 strong at your house is very uncomfortable.
Now, ranchers like Valderrama say whether Title 8 is in place or Title 42, these types of situations come with the territory of living along the U.S.-Mexican border. Now, we know that Eagle Pass leadership as well as Piedra Negra's leadership have met with Mexico to organize a unified response in the event that Eagle Pass is met with an incredible number of migrants seeking to get into the U.S. From Eagle Pass, Jonathan Cotto, KSAT 12 News.
Jonathan, thank you. Now, there is so much talk about the end of Title 42 and what that will mean, but what about its beginning? This policy wasn't created under the Trump administration, but it was used in a way it never had been before. We're going to break that down in a KSAT Explains coming up at 6:30.
All right, let's check out weather right now. Live cam 83 degrees. Yesterday it was mostly overcast. The temperature didn't really rise that much. Different story today.
Yeah, different story today. By the noon hour and especially a little thereafter, the sun came out and that helped boost our temperatures in the lower 80s locally, 90s along the Rio Grande. You look at the radar right now, we did have one little shower pop up near Gonzales. Over the past 30 minutes, that's about it. The rest of the action is off in East Texas. And I do think we'll be dry the rest of this evening and mostly dry tomorrow. So you can get in those evening and afternoon activities outside. Soccer, baseball, whatever it may be. Got the green light, swim practice, whatever. Partly cloudy this evening, 77 at 8 o'clock. By 10 o'clock, we're in the mid-70s. A southeasterly wind at 5 to 15. Very high humidity. You'll notice that stickiness out there, and that's going to help lead to some low clouds after midnight and to start the day tomorrow. So another gray start to the day, but we'll break out into afternoon sunshine. In turn, we'll be back into the 80s. We're thinking 87 the high tomorrow, 87 the high on Friday, but then look at that temperature drop. Highs back down into the 70s. And we know what that's related to, rain. Get ready for some heavy rain. We'll talk about when it's going to arrive, how much we should see, and where we could have some severe weather as well in a bit, Myra.
All right, we'll see you then. Thanks, Adam. Tonight, San Antonio police are searching for the driver who left a trail of destruction in a West Side neighborhood. SAPD responded to that crash around 7 this morning in the 1200 block of Ruiz Street. Police say they found a pickup truck wedged between a metal fence outside of a home. Officers say the driver ran off after crashing into at least one other vehicle and a home before then again taking off. No one here was hurt, though. Police have not released any information about that driver.
A man charged with intoxication manslaughter took a plea deal to get a 5-year sentence. Robert Lee Collette was actually charged after crashing his truck into 61-year-old Sylvia Santos in November of 2020. Investigators say Collette was speeding when his truck hit Santos' car on 281. Yesterday, he waived his right to a trial, pleaded guilty in exchange for a 5-year sentence.
Now to another plea deal. A woman charged with capital murder got a plea today. Natalie Carrington is one of 7 who was charged in the 2020 robbery and murder of a 19-year-old mother. Erica Hernandez takes us inside the courtroom.
In July 2020, 19-year-old Jasmine Williams, a mother of 2, was fatally shot inside her home and had her shoes, piggy bank, debit card, and cell phone stolen. The investigation led to 7 people being arrested. As the case has moved through the court system, some have had their charge dismissed and others have accepted a plea deal. The latest to accept a deal, Natalie Carrington.
What is your plea to the charge of aggravated robbery? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest? Guilty.
Carrington pleading guilty to the lesser charge of aggravated robbery. Per the plea, the judge can sentence Carrington anywhere from 5 to 25 years in prison.
Now, while Carrington took that plea today, she won't be sentenced today because she will be required to testify against her other co-defendants.
Makes it real clear you're to testify at any time of the proceedings, so you understand that? Yes, Your Honor.
There are only 2 of the 7 still charged with capital murder. John Tavian Saunders has a scheduled court hearing in June and Alyssa Wiese in July. Erica Hernandez, KSAT 12 News.
Check out traffic right now. Let's go to 410 and McCullough, where you can see there is quite the traffic jam there. And, you know, that's where 281 gets onto 410. So that's kind of what's causing most of this backup as you look towards San Pedro, the westbound lanes of Loop 410. The cameras at McCullough, as we said, we're looking towards San Pedro. So that's where the give and take is taking place.
Yeah, that's always a tricky intersection, especially at 6. Still ahead here on the news at 6, the man convicted of killing a Black Lives Matter protester in Austin has been sentenced. But Governor Abbott says he'll do something about that. The latest on this case is next.
Here's a quick look at what we're working on for you on the Night Beat. 5 years ago, a bicyclist accidentally killed after being hit by a San Antonio police officer driving a patrol unit. Tonight, why that man's family says the city does not value their loved one's life. Those stories and more on the Night Beat at 10.
The U.S. Army sergeant who was found guilty of shooting and killing a Black Lives Matter protester in Austin in 2020 was sentenced today.
And after careful and thoughtful and thorough consideration by this court of all the evidence presented by both parties, this court sentences you to a term of 25 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice.
Daniel Perry was convicted last month of murdering Air Force veteran and protester Garrett Foster. Texas Governor Greg Abbott already announced that he would approve a pardon if a request was sent to him. The Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles is now reviewing Perry's case.
Some of the victims injured in Saturday's deadly mass shooting at an outlet mall in Allen are recovering tonight, according to Medical City Healthcare. As of today, at Medical City McKinney, 2 victims were in fair condition, 1 in good condition, just 1 still in critical condition. At Medical City Plano, an injured victim is in good condition, and at Medical City Children's Hospital, an injured child also in good condition.
Here at home, let's turn to the forecast now. Not the rain we saw yesterday, more sunshine, but we've got more rain chances to talk about, Adam.
Yes, we do have more rain chances to talk about and a lot more rain to talk about. Good drought busting and drought denting rain. Yes, I said it. Drought busting for some areas, not necessarily the most drought stricken of South and Central Texas. Let's take a look at those rain chances. Just 10% tomorrow, Friday 40%, that's mainly afternoon, evening, and then Friday night through Saturday we're up to 80%, Sunday at 60%. What that means is widespread rain, and not just widespread rain, but heavy at times, some lightning and thunder as well, and even some potential severe storms, especially late Friday. And some of that's going to linger into Monday as well. Now, the rain has been a good thing, and one of our wonderful KSAT viewers on KSAT Connect just posted some photos from Canyon Lake. Now, this was before we had our rains. Unfortunately, we don't have a date on this photo, but before we had the rains, and then from the similar vantage point, you look at the difference. I'm going to go back. These are those 4 trees, and notice how those trees, person had to take a step back. Here's another, look at this wall in the background, that little cliff, that limestone, and there's the water nice and full then. I'll do that one more time for you. Here we go, before the rain, after the rain. I did a little research, and all around Canyon Lake, we've seen about 5 inches of rain in the rain gauges around Canyon Lake. That's about what it averages out to. That's since April 1st. So since April 1st, and coming up next half hour, I'm going to have the latest on the area reservoir levels, and we can look at a comparison compared to even this time last year. We'll have those coming up next half hour. Here's the big picture. Let's talk about what's headed our way. First of all, this little swirl in the upper levels, that's the upper level energy that gave us this last batch of showers and storms. That's moving out of here. We've got another upper level swirl, dynamic pattern, a little unique too. It's a bit of a unique and odd pattern that we're getting into, but I'm not complaining. This upper level swirl, that's going to be passing to the north of us. But as that passes to the north, a new disturbance is going to develop and center itself in West Texas Friday into Saturday, and that's going to put us in a favorable position of thunderstorms that will be following each other. So some training of those storms, which means heavy rainfall in some spots. You know, we get those little alleyways on the radar. We're going to have some of those. They should have some heavy rain. And with all the moisture in the air, the Gulf moisture, the Pacific moisture aloft, and the instability, those clouds will be squeezing out some heavy rain at times, high rainfall rates. So flash flooding, an issue. It may become too much of a good thing for some folks. And Mother's Day, best bet, plan the indoor activities with mom. I do think we'll have widespread areas of rain lingering on into Mother's Day. Heaviest rain right up and down central Texas, Wichita Falls is to Laredo, basically. We're talking widespread 4 to 6 inches, especially west of Highway 281, with isolated higher amounts. You go farther to the east of San Antonio, we'll see lesser amounts, probably under 3 inches. That's basically from now all the way on through the early part of next week. As for our severe weather risk, Friday evening, a 2 out of 5 west of town. So we could see some scattered thunderstorms become strong to severe late in the day on Friday and Friday night, locally and particularly farther to the west. Temperature-wise, 82 right now, dew point is 68. It's humid. 95, though, in Del Rio, 91 Cotulla. We have those hot spots out there, but only 79 in Gonzales and LaGrange at 75. Tomorrow, we start the day in near 70 degrees, in the low 70s in spots. 71 here in town, cloudy, a few stray sprinkles, and a sunny afternoon, 87 for the high temperature and just a 10% chance of a stray storm. So good news for any outdoor activities tomorrow. Well into the 80s tomorrow, even just barely hitting 90 in spots. And then you look ahead and we're back in the 70s this weekend with that rain kicking off Friday night.
All right. Thank you, Adam.
All right. We've been following your story, and this Roadrunner achieved something.
Yes, Cameron Carrion punched her ticket to the NCAA championships in golf today by winning the San Antonio Regional. And look at her teammates showering her because she already had that baby wrapped up. Plus, it was signing day out at Alamo Heights. Coming up.
I turned around and made it. Everyone was screaming, and I knew. And I looked and I asked my coaches, and everyone's saying they're smiling. I was like, "Did I do it?" And then I started crying because everyone was like, "Yeah, you did it."
Oh, that's cool.
It was just awesome.
Cameron Carrion's teammates and coaches showered her with water after dominating the field in big board sports. UTSA senior golfer Cameron Carrion is your 2023 NCAA San Antonio Regional Individual Champion. She fired a final round 4 under 68 to win the event at 10 under par 206. Cameron entered the final round with a 4-shot lead, and she won by 6 strokes. She dominated on the Roadrunners home course. We caught up with the champ after her round to talk about winning the SA Regional.
I spoke to y'all earlier this week, and I didn't want to, get ahead of myself or anything like that, but I was feeling confident. But it's scary, though, because you don't want to be too confident. Yeah. Right now, I feel confident, and it feels really good.
So 4 under today. Did you feel any nerves at all out there?
Of course. I would be lying if I didn't, but I knew that I've been practicing this thing because I've been in contention quite a bit this year. And I won earlier this year, and I'm trying to channel that feeling that last day as well. And I felt really nervous, but I did just try to embrace being nervous because that's what I live for. That's why we practice every day out here for. That's why I'm, on the putting green for hours. And it's just, I was just trying to embrace being nervous about it because I was trying to turn the nervousness into excitement.
Yeah. Did you know at one point that the UCLA golfer was just 2 shots behind you?
No, I just learned that right now. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
Okay, so you had no idea what the competition was doing?
Not at all, no.
Okay, so 10 under, that's an incredible score here. Was it really, truly then a home course advantage for you?
I don't know. I do know certain spots a little bit better, I think. I know where not to go for sure, but there's some lines like on 18, I never hit driver, and a lot of people try to take driver or they're hitting an iron, so I kind of chose something between there, and I think that helped. I just know where not to go. So I tried to stay clear of those areas, and that might have been the only advantage I had, but still had to make the putts.
Cam advanced to the national championships to be played May 19th through the 24th at Greyhawk Golf Club in Scottsdale, Arizona. Take you to Alamo Heights High School, where 14 mules signed letters of intent to play at the next level in almost every sport: fencing, track and field, tennis, soccer, gymnastics, basketball, baseball, and football. And 2 of them are going to UT to play for Coach Sarkisian.
Just felt right. Just every time I've gone there, I just felt like this is the place I want to go to college. It's the place I want to be, and to have this opportunity to go there and play as well as it means everything. It really does. It's like, growing up, this is always, like I said, always something I've thought of. It really does mean a lot to follow him as well.
The coaching staff, the atmosphere, just going over there was such a great time, and being there, I felt like home, and it's really all that matters to me.
We will have more with the Mules tonight on the Night Beat.
All right. Thank you, Larry.
You got it.
Still to come in our next half hour, where did Title 42 come from? We explain what it actually means and the policy that's been in place these last few years along the border. Next.
If the end of Title 42 feels like deja vu, there's a reason for that. 1 year ago, immigration officials and border cities were preparing for that policy to be lifted.
Yeah, nearly a year to the day. But then a judge stepped in at the 11th hour and ruled to keep Title 42 in place. We did a KSAT Explains then, focused on where Title 42 came from and its real-world impact. And we're bringing it back today.
It started at the height of the pandemic, March of 2020, when the Trump administration enacted Title 42. But it's actually been on the books in America for nearly 80 years. It's part of the Public Health Service Act signed by FDR in 1944, toward the end of World War II. The intent of Title 42 was to suspend entries and imports from designated places to prevent the spread of communicable diseases. Tuberculosis was a big public health concern then. The Public Health Service Act also created the National Cancer Institute, but overall, not legislation that was considered major.
It really had rarely been used and had never ever been used in the immigration context.
Until 2020, that's when Title 42 was invoked to essentially suspend immigration at U.S. land borders. It meant that Customs and Border Protection did not have to process people who presented themselves at the border wanting to seek asylum. Instead, they're fingerprinted and expelled from the U.S. That's not the same as deportation. When someone is deported, they're barred from re-entering the country for a certain certain number of years. Expulsion doesn't carry that penalty. What happens after someone is expelled depends on where they're from.
If they're from Mexico or Central America, they're typically just sent right back to Mexico within a matter of hours. If they're from another country where Mexican immigration is not going to allow them to simply be put back, then they're temporarily held in CBP custody. There were people who were being held in hotels until essentially a plane is filled up and then people are flown out.
That's what we saw play out in Del Rio in September 2021. Nearly 16,000 migrants from Haiti crossed into the U.S. hoping to seek asylum, fleeing a country in upheaval after the assassination of the Haitian president and a devastating earthquake. It became a humanitarian crisis in Del Rio. Thousands of people living in makeshift shelters under a bridge with few supplies and resources. To make an asylum claim, you must be physically present in the U.S. You can't start the process online or even at a U.S. embassy. Once a migrant claims asylum, the next step is what's called a credible fear interview. That's when an asylum officer decides whether a person merits going through the full asylum process. Fear is something Jamie Solis is fleeing. We met Jamie and her 3-year-old daughter at the Catholic Charities Respite Center in McAllen last May. They came to the U.S. from Nicaragua to escape political oppression and violence.
Ahí es terrible, ahí está bien reprimido, no puedes decir nada porque ya te echan la policía, no puedes expresarte bien, tenés que andar siempre con ese miedo.
She was one of the lucky ones who wasn't turned away. And then there's Yamari Gonzalez Vasquez from Cuba. What he fears, he says, is hunger in his home country.
Si estamos pidiendo asilo para tener un mejor futuro, para un futuro para el bebé, para nosotros mismos también, que tenga todo lo que un cubano no puede tener.
That is all that we've been advocating for, right? Allow people to apply for asylum. It doesn't mean they get to stay. It just means give them a chance to apply, and if they qualify, they get to stay. If they don't qualify, they may be deported. And Title 42 gets rid of all of that.
But there are those who enter the U.S. illegally who don't seek asylum, whether frustrated with too slow a process at the southern border or simply hoping to evade immigration authorities.
I do find people that are lost. Okay.
Richard Guetta owns La Anacua Ranch in Starr County, outside Roma, several thousand acres just north of the border. He's seen firsthand what migrants often go through trying to make the dangerous journey into the U.S.
They have been abandoned. Whoever brought them across abandoned them. And they told them, well, it's just a short distance and you're going to be in Houston, right? But of course, that's not true. It's so hard to see people enduring things like that, you know.
His fences have been damaged by migrants who cross his lands. Even his livelihood, his cattle, have been affected. But a concern that spreads beyond his ranch, he says, is drug smuggling.
You know, there's a lot of narcotics coming across. The National Guard is out there to supplement the Border Patrol, and even so, they can't control it. So it's out of hand. By removing Title 42, you're going to add to an existing burden.
Yet some argue the anticipated wave of migrants is a problem that U.S. policy created.
Because of Title 42, that's the reason why we have the levels and activities that we see right now.
The numbers are arguably higher right now precisely because we've been pushing people back for more than 2 years.
And again, Title 42 is set to end tomorrow night. We'll continue our coverage on what happens as a result of that. You can find all our KSAT Explains coverage by scanning this QR code. Also look for it on the KSAT YouTube channel. We'll be right back.